Okay, so as part of our felt management study group, and this might be a little bit counterintuitive, but we know that a lot of silt that ends up, for example, in Midmar Dam and in future will land up in the Smithfield Dam comes from road drainage and runoff off roads. But we don't know how much of that lies at the door of the road guys and how much lies at the door of the farmers. So as part of our felt study group, we said, let's do a silt trap. Now we're in a situation here where there's a long run of gravel road, district road, coming down the hill here, and there are a number of drains on the upside of the road where the water should go in a pipe. It comes underneath the road and it should take off at multiple places down the hill, and because of lack of maintenance that hasn't happened. Those have blocked up and the water's coming down probably 2 kilometers down the hill till it's really gained velocity. And then behind me here is the one drain that isn't blocked, probably because there's enough velocity to push gravel through it. And it comes through under the road and washes onto this property where we're standing now. And the landowner here was having immense problems that he gets all of this road gravel washing all the way down his hill. And also his little dam at the bottom there is always full of silt. So he had wanted to do something, and we were looking for a site to build our silt trap. And we had a site around the corner which had problems with it because the water flow kept changing. So we pursued that for 1.5 years and ultimately couldn't use it. And then we discovered this property, the fact that this landowner owns some earth moving equipment and wanted to do something similar, had this notion. So it was a marriage made in heaven. So we decided, let's build this silt trap here. And the idea came from the UK, where they build these on the side of tar roads, and we don't know of any examples where this has been done on a gravel road in a sort of agricultural landscape. But what we've done is we've got the water coming off the road. We're going to do some work in a trench here to get it into our silt trap, and then perhaps we'll take a walk down there and I'll show you how the water is going to flow through and where it'll overflow and what have you. Basically a hole in the ground to let the water sit there for a while and all of the solids to settle out. What we've got here is a sort of 2 chambers. The water, when we finished excavating, we'll divert this water that comes down the hill into this end of this hole. And there's a chamber here which is relatively small, and so the water will flow in here after a big storm at speed, and it'll have a certain amount of settling time. And our expectation is that this road gravel will settle out here. Then we're going to build across here what they call a leaky dam. Basically we'll get a whole lot of gum poles from some alien gums that are being felled, and we'll make a fence with a solid wall of poles. Obviously there are gaps in between. We'll then put some geotech fabric over that, and the water can pass through that, or it can pass over the top, and it will then enter the second chamber, which is a much bigger chamber, and therefore the water will have a lot more residence time. It will sit in there for longer. And during that time, the hope is that a fair proportion of the silt will settle out, and then it is allowed to overflow very slowly. In fact, it's got an underflow so that it eventually empties, and then it's empty, ready for the next storm. So we're going to have a look at the outflow area, and I'll explain how that works. It's a 300 ml concrete pipe that the landowner had lying around, so we've joined that, and we've sealed it in and put a heavy clay over it and compressed it. And what we're going to do here is build a 1 meter by 1 meter foundation and floor, reinforced, and then we will brick up the sides to a height, and I'll come to the heights just now, but somewhere around about this height, sort of at waist level. And this monk's weir, as they call it, will have a little slot down the side which is wider at the top and goes narrower and narrower. So the idea is that the water fills up here and immediately starts trickling out through the narrow end of the slot at the bottom. If a lot more water comes down and the level rises up, then a little bit more will escape, because we need it to escape a little bit faster. If you have a small rainstorm and it only fills to a low level, it'll only bleed out at a slow rate, so it'll give it time to settle. As you approach the possibility of an overflow, it accelerates how much goes out. If you get to a point where there's an absolute deluge, and this is the difficulty, we don't know how much water comes down here, we've got no way of measuring it, but if you have a deluge, the water will eventually flow over the top into the monk's weir and out the 300 ml pipe, and it will then to some degree not be functioning as a silt trap. because it's overflowing at that extent. But at least we've got a safety mechanism that it doesn't wash away. Further to that, we're going to get the level correct just to the side here, where we'll have a spillway that if this monk's weir is not coping, it can go over there. And then in addition to that, at the other end, we'll have a slightly higher overflow there for absolute emergencies where more water can flow out over that side. So we hope to have enough overflow capacity that this thing will never wash away, and we hope for it to fill up quickly, as it will in a storm, full of silt, and then the level drops very, very slowly, giving this time for both the shale and in this case the clay particles to fall out. And then these two ends, both of them will be sloped, that you can drive in here with a TLB or a bobcat and pick up this material and go and use it to fill a donga, pave a road, whatever it is you want to do. So that's the theory behind the Silt Trap.